it is fascinating that a lot of people do not realize, and sometimes I feel like I'm losing a track of that myself, that you need to spend time to make more of it for the direction that you are heading, right? Sometimes you need to stop and just consider everything you were going through and all the pieces involving, and kind of do analysis of it, what worked, what didn't, and improve. But if you don't take that time, there is no chance you can continue on the that skyrocketing trajectory and being a hustler all your life, because it's leading directly to burning off all the fuel that is in the rocket, right?
Yeah. I really believe that we have to be selfful. And selfful is a made-up word that I made up, and I use it all the time. And it's the idea that oftentimes when we are raised to believe that when we spend time on ourselves, when we think about ourselves, it's selfish.
Yeah.
And truth be told, when we fill our cup first, we are of better service in this world to the people that we love, to the people in our community, to the people that matter the most to us, and to the things that we want to put our energy into. And I really believe in filling my own cup first, but I wasn't maybe at times even aware a cup existed. You just end up going so fast that the periphery is nothing but blur.
Yeah.
Right. And the challenge is, the objective way to look at it is that slowing down is the subjective piece, right? It's going to be different for everyone. Some people need to really stop, and others just need to slow. Yeah. Some people are going 40 kilometers an hour and others are going 150 kilometers an hour. So it's all subjective. The most important thing is just that you're in tune enough with your own well-being and the world around you, being your world again, to know when to tap the brake, when to slow down, and how long you have to slow down to fill that cup back up. It's going to be different for every single person. The challenge is just making sure you're doing it, because if you're not doing it, there's an inevitable capital B burnout at the end of that road in many experiences that I've seen, where people just can't keep going at that pace forever.
There's a lot of people who never realize that and go through life thinking that the hustle is all, and that they need to follow that path to be successful, to be someone, to be or not to be in the meaning of memento mori, right? I wanna touch on the lessons that you got from one of hardest experiences that you had, and you describe in a book, which is your relationship with your father. And it was almost non-existent. And I remember there was I think it was a piece either that your mother said or your grandmother, I'm not 100% sure, and it goes something like that. Bob, he's not your friend, he's your son. It isn't about having an open door policy with your children, it's about meeting them where they need to be met, not the other way around. How do you feel that relationship built you? How hard those challenges were at the time, and how is the perspective of them today working in your favor?
I think context is important, first and foremost. The relationship with my father was nothing short of estranged, but only after my early teens. He and my mom divorced when I was quite young, and there was, I would say, sort of a haphazard relationship. It happened, on holidays, not much in between. And inevitably there came a point that I just made the decision that I was not going to spend more time with him. And I was young to make the decision. I was probably only maybe 13. And that was actually the very moment when I had made that decision, that comment came from my mom to my father. And it's funny because in hindsight, there's an empathy for him and where he was. Not a forgiveness, because he chose to become a father, either on purpose or inadvertently. Either way, it's still a choice. But the empathy in that, I just don't think, let me recant that. I know he just wasn't supposed to be a father. He just wasn't supposed to be a dad. And so when I look back on it now, I'm empathetic to the fact that relationship, the father-son relationship, was a real struggle for him. It was not an easy relationship. And he didn't know how to navigate it. And he had no map. His father and he did not have a good relationship. His father died not long after the war. They came to Canada and then passed away, a few years later. And truth be told, his roadmap was non-existent. And so if you're not destined maybe to be something, and then on top of that you have no guidebook when you find yourself in that situation, you can be pretty lost, right? We've all been in those scenarios where we feel completely disconnected from the experience we're having, and nothing, no tool we're given helps us sort of steer us. And I think that was him in fatherhood. And so at the time, I remember thinking how unfair it was that, all my friends had dads and they had great relationships. And, when I was growing up, divorce wasn't at the rates it is today. So that the presence of a male figure in their lives was something that I really wanted, and not something that I really got initially with my stepfather. My mom remarried when I was 7, so about 4 years later. And the man that she married, my stepfather today, was, someone who I just didn't necessarily identify with in terms of how he showed up in the world. And what I mean by that was he grew up, with dirt floors in a farmhouse and 8 kids, fighting for what food there was. They were a very blue collar family. Education was almost secondary to them, as in most of them went through high school and that was it. I'm not entirely sure all of them even finished high school. And, he was a guy that could fix anything. He could get under a car and do an oil change and build a house and all these things that were so foreign to me at that age. I mean, I was, quote unquote, a city kid. Now, the city kid at the time, this was before we moved to the town of 400 people. But even still, it was still only a population of, 25,000 at the time. But it was such a foreign concept to me, the way he lived, that we never met on any sort of plane. And so that male figure that I longed for, a father figure, just really was not there. And so the lessons that I've really drawn after his death, which only came from a moment of pause, it only came from a lot of reflection, and through the experience of his funeral, to understand that while he was not born to be a father, there's no question he was an incredible friend. That takes a giant leap in terms of perspective. There's a lot of people who have said to me, yeah, but that doesn't discount that you deserved a dad. No, you're probably right, it doesn't. But I can either find comfort in that reality, which I can't change. I can't go back and change the time he was here, and now that he's gone, there's nothing to change in the future, except my relationship with who he was to me. And how powerfully the lessons that he gave me, distilled down and applied, can be used. And so I think that is the thing really that steers me now, is knowing that we're not built to be everything to everyone. So why not spend time nurturing the thing we are meant to be to the people we are meant to be them to?